Thanks a lot for that, Jane. And Margie, you're a hard act to follow. But it sort of does connect in a roundabout kind of way, I guess, the collaborative approach, and certainly the market we're really looking at is aged care, which is, I guess, a little bit more stable, less mobile than the tourism industry, but something that's very consistent from 1 month to the 1 week to the next. So I guess just before we really get into it, I guess it really is putting it in place. We all have a mother, grandmother that potentially may be in aged care. We all potentially ourselves down the track may be in aged care. And in terms of, I guess, the purpose of coming here today is really to look at the moment, every Friday, we know very consistently you walk into most aged care homes and they do fish on a Friday. It's not done well. Quite often, it's something that residents are, they look forward to fish. They love fish. It's nice and tender, but it's what is supplied is generally imported, frozen, dry, and quite often wasted. And so that's the reason that's important. We'll go through in a moment. But at the end of the day, if it's not eaten, it's not nourishing, and that's actually very vital, and why, as a dietitian, I'm interested in it. So I understand in terms of, for most part, the deal of, I guess, seafood. There are fast-moving consumer goods. In terms of, in my world, around nutrition and seafood, I guess in the aged care, I'd like nursing homes from a seafood industry to be looked at as a FMCG. It's really, we've got a lot of opportunities there. So the things that we're really looking for are fresh, local, nutritious, affordable and safe food supply. We've got a vulnerable population out there. I'm a pretty practical dietitian. I eat most things. As part of that, we really try and connect in with community and come up with really realistic opportunities in the aged care sector. And part of that is to develop the Lantern Project, which is a national collaboration of aged care stakeholders. We meet on a monthly basis at Bond University, and just finishing a PhD in the topic of quantifying the value of nutrition in aged care. So where's the little buzzer, the little clicker? This thing? Yep. So just the green button? Yep. That one? Wonderful. So the Lantern Project is really looking at the end of the spectrum of life. So over 65s, not that over 65 is really what we're looking at, it's more, I know. It's one of those things, what do we define as old age? And it's very variable. The average aged care resident that I see is around 85. So we're looking at that sort of demographic. Well, certainly over 65s account for around 3.7 million people in Australia. And what is of interest is certainly by the year 2050, that's going to either double to triple in size, so the proportion of over 65s. So it's a large demographic we're looking at. In terms of in the aged care setting, we've got around 250,000 residents, and then we extend that out to home care residents who are being cared for in their own home with meal services such as Meals on Wheels and other meal services. It's a large group. We are looking at predominantly more females. In terms of what I'm interested in my research, we know that 1 in 2 Australian aged care residents are malnourished. So it's a shocking figure. It's been a figure that's been around for a long time, and we're really looking through the project to innovate to address the problem of malnutrition. So one of the studies that we've done has been around dental health and the issue. So we know from the aged care studies that we've done that 83% of residents require dental referrals. There's really it's hard to access dentists in the aged care industry. But what that results in is poor dentition, ill-fitting dentures. We need soft protein sources. Seafood fits that bill. So I guess the purpose of really discussing today is how do we collaborate? So the Lantern Project is a mix of very diverse players, and being here today is really an invitation, encouraging you to be joining in the conversation. So looking for novel solutions to the seafood and fish market. So the beauty of, I guess, seafood in aged care is, as I said, sort of it's nice, it's a good protein source, it's soft, but it's helping to address a lot of the goals that we're looking for to address the issue of malnutrition. So we know from past sort of, I guess, projects with Lantern that the beauty of collaboration is so much greater than working separately. So in terms of the current players, it's quite diverse. I'm sure most of you know Maggie Beers. She certainly has been right from the start involved with Lantern, has started a foundation really to drive the aged care kind of food goal, but a lot of aged care providers and industry. We've got lots of objectives with Lantern. I won't go through each of them, but the seventh objective, which we've always looked at as, you know, that's really ultimately will achieve success, is how do we support and encourage and engage with local industry. So at the moment, certainly the fish that is supplied as imported is not served as frequently as residents would like. It's one of the, probably as a dietitian consulting, it's one of the biggest complaints that I hear. So if we're looking at, again, just in the aged care market, 250,000 residents, and we're aiming for fish 3 times a week and maybe a portion of 100 grams per resident, that's all right. Do your maths. It's a fair whack of fish on a weekly basis. So there's lots of nutrition considerations that we really need to be looking at, and I'm not going to go through them today, but certainly from, as I've mentioned, dentition, dexterity, so looking at sort of for residents who aren't able to manage knives and forks, how do we kind of promote dignity and offer opportunities for maybe finger foods that incorporate seafood, looking for novel ways of serving seafood, engaging senses, so taste, sensation, taste acuity decreases as we get older, and it's looking for ways to amplify flavours to make it much more appealing. So in looking and chatting with aged care chefs, there's a lot of frustration out there, and so I sort of, you know, kind of having chats with them around what are the barriers in terms of seafood interest, in terms of putting seafood on the aged care menu. So there's one of the biggest constraints is education and chef skills, and certainly there's an opportunity there, again, to engage with industry. How do we upskill? Are there ways that we can provide sort of education and training to do seafood better in the aged care setting? Looking at you know, providing seafood in more of the large institutional kitchens in a good way. Food safety, so I guess the aged care sector, it's a vulnerable population, so it's vital that food is safe, and certainly one of the biggest constraints we know is the cost. So current aged care spend is one of the studies that we put out earlier this year. We know that there's $6.08 is what is spent on aged care residents per resident per day. Thank you. So we don't have a lot to work with. Chefs can't, I guess if we've got fish that's $30 a kilo and we're serving 100 gram portions, $3 a day, it's half of the whole entire day's budget. It's too much. So it's considering that. So in terms of fish specifically, I guess the main issues we look at are safety. The constraints are around safety. So I guess preparing the food safety, affordability, the tight budgets that we're working within. How do we look for either cheaper fish that traditionally elderly actually enjoy that may be not popular and currently looked at as a great fish market? We had a great conversation earlier around some of those fish types. And practicality, how do we you know, supply fish in the right portions, so 100 gram portions, no bones, no skin, easy to eat. So we're actually asking this session, it's just more of a teaser. These are things that we're looking at. As a collaboration, we're really inviting you to come and join that conversation to innovate with us. There's a lot of diverse conversations, but certainly we've allocated the November 3rd meeting to be specifically around seafood. So we webinar people in from all around the country, and it's something that we're hoping we can invite anyone of interest who's interested in looking further at the aged care market to work with us to come up with some solutions so that we can keep it local and provide a higher quality standard of fish to the aged care, because I guess we're all going to be there one day, and it's something that we all see value in seafood, and it's certainly a nutritious way of getting a great source of protein. Thank you for having me.